Often when seeing dining etiquette, we can be overwhelmed with what knife, which fork, and which glass. It can all get a little bit complicated. This is the exact reason why I wanted to dial things back and focus on the basics of etiquette. Informal settings include friends, acquaintances, family, and every other person that you share an informal relationship with. Therefore, dining etiquette encompasses all the do's and the don'ts that you must adhere to when you are eating. The subject of dining etiquette ranges across many matters, including the handling of utensils, how one should chew, the use of napkins, and several other accepted codes of conduct. Although this video will be about informal dining etiquette, many of the things discussed will be common across all dining. And there's no call to reduce your standard of behavior just because you're with friends. Don't they too deserve your respect? When we learn all forms of etiquette, it allows us to gauge the level of formality and then act accordingly, especially when there's no sharp divide lines. So tip number 1, RSVP. As soon as you get an invitation to dinner from your host, you should reply promptly, usually no more than 24 hours after receiving the invitation. If you have a genuine reason not to respond, an acceptable time from there is 72 hours. Acceptable reasons for delay include being out of touch, whether that means you're traveling or dealing with a family emergency. However, in these cases, always apologize for your late response. A late email is much more in order than no email at all. However, you should reply with a definite yes or a definite no. However, it should be personalized according to your relationship with the host. Have you had to decline, but maybe your plans are subject to change? In these circumstances, ask the host if the invitation is still open. Number 2, let's talk about dress code. Your dress code is going to depend on an array of factors. Who invited you? Were you invited to a home or a restaurant? What is the weather at the time of the event? What time of day is the event? However, the expected dress will often be written on the invitation when you've received one. And with saying that, it may be wise for you to become well versed with the different dress codes that are out there. You don't need to know every single one of them, but I would definitely recommend learning the most common ones. Tip number 3, let's talk about your arrival time. We shouldn't ever keep our hosts waiting. However, that doesn't mean that we show up earlier than what was requested. When you arrive at your destination, warmly greet your host with a broad smile and leave your worries and your troubles and your problems at home. No one loves a negative Nancy around the dinner table. And here's another tip. If you're arriving at your destination straight from work and you don't have your own means of transportation, consider how much you are bringing with you to work on that particular day. It shouldn't look like you're arriving at your host's house with enough luggage to move in. Tip number 4, hostess gifts. It will be the most appropriate and the most appreciated if you take a gift to your host. These may include things such as flowers, wine, chocolate, or other similar things. However, it might be wise to look up the customary code for where you currently live or what group the hosts may belong to, because some gifts aren't appropriate depending on the culture or the environment that you're in. Once you've arrived, allow your host to offer you a seat. Do not just go into the dining area and help yourself. Allow them to guide you where you're to be. Tip number 5, let's talk about where you should sit. Once you get to the dining area, you should wait until the host points out where you should sit. Let them get seated before you sit. Now, sometimes some people will follow precedence, and I feel like that's more formal. So you probably won't get yourself into this situation if you are in an informal dining situation. However, some people will have you over to their home and they'll have place cards. And often events will have place cards with your name on it. Equally, if you are going to be looking at hosting people this season, make sure that you signal where your guests should sit if you haven't put out place cards. This avoids any future confusion or conversation about who should sit where. Now, when you do sit down, whether you're the host or the guest, ensure that you're not sprawling all over the table. Ensure that you are sitting up straight. If you are a lady who you are carrying a little clutch or handbag, you can sit it behind you in your seat or on a special chair if one has been provided for you. Just ensure that you never put your purse on the table. Tip number 6, cell phone etiquette. Certain rules apply to the use of smartphones during dining occasions. As the host, even though this might be your personal space, you have to apply the rule of polite public interaction. Your full attention should be on your guests, and you should be in the moment. There are a few exceptions to this. Perhaps you have your phone beside you just in case someone gets lost on their way to meet you, or equally if it's an emergency. In this case, apologize and move away from the table. Are you enjoying learning all of the basics about dining etiquette? In the next video about dining etiquette, we'll be discussing napkins, American dining styles, utensils, and more. I hope you will press subscribe and join me.